It's very nice to see you here at East Capital Aivaras. You belong to our investment management team for 12 years before you were appointed Minister of Economy and Trade in Ukraine in late 2014. Do you see any similarities between being an investment manager and a minister?
Well, certainly there were some similarities, especially I would compare being a minister in unreformed ministry in Ukraine as being a private equity manager, when you want to really do a turnaround in a company. So I fired 50% of the people. I had to hire all the new heads of departments and all the new deputy ministers and all the bright people. And then, I really needed to take a lot of good advice from external partners, from former reformists from other countries, including Anders Åslund, Ivan Miklos, many others. So here you can say that we worked with almost like a supervisory board. So it's really resonates very well with being, in a corporate structure and so on, where you want to turn things around and implement, a lot of novelties and so on.
In early February, you announced your resignation, but you were formally voted out by the parliament only this afternoon when the new prime minister and the new cabinet were voted in. What made you resign when you did?
Look, in my job, from the very beginning, I was promised by the president and the prime minister that there will be no obstruction to the reform process that I will undertake. That all the HR decisions in hiring deputies for myself and heads of departments and state-owned enterprise CEOs will be only, done by myself independently and without interference from any type of political players, which turned out at the end was not exactly the case. And I said that some of the members of the parliament interfering into my work, pressuring me to appoint some dodgy people, that this type of process is incompatible with the reform process, and I asked to be relieved of my duties.
What are you most proud of having achieved during your time in office?
Look, I think I created from the very beginning the most reform-minded ministry of all. So in all types of local ratings that kept coming out once in a while, we were always firmly in the top 3, most of the time number 1, in terms of what we promise and what we achieve and what we deliver and so on. But predominantly success is in the following areas. First and foremost, public procurement. When I came, there was nothing. Not a single public procurement transaction in electronic format. By the end of this August, all country will be moved to electronic public procurement. We are shortlisted globally, last week, for global procurement awards, having the best system in the world. And this is what leapfrogging allows you. You're a bit backward, and then the technology changes, and you adapt the latest, and you have the best system. By the end of the year, we will have the most advanced public procurement system in Europe. Number 2 is deregulation. Even though we expected to do more, but Parliament was incapable of passing a number of laws that we prepared for them. We still cut 40% of all licenses that were required to conduct business activity. We synchronized certification with EU legislation, so certification of 90% of goods coming from EU does not require any more additional Ukrainian corrupt certification. Enormous amount of other types of permits were simply removed, and billions of hryvnias were saved for the business. And on state-owned enterprises, when I came, obviously with my investment management experience, I was shocked that there was nothing. 1,824 state-owned enterprises, they did not even report financial statements to the public. There was no obligation. Only 3 or 4 companies have underwent, by that time, international audit. Losses at state-owned enterprises were 117 billion hryvnia for the year 2014. So we cut losses in 1 year by making things more transparent, so that CEOs, were frightened to steal on the same scale. We cut the losses by 101 billion hryvnia. We introduced all the novelties, all the supervisory boards, new selection of CEOs, transparent one under my leadership for all companies, obligatory audit, and many other things. but we were only at the beginning. And this is an uphill battle to reform state-owned enterprises, and country in an early stage of transition with weak institutions will never be an efficient owner of the state assets. So the only thing that can heal this, corrupt sort of a practice of siphoning money out of the state-owned enterprises is privatization. So we need to accelerate privatization ASAP. And my resignation raised the issue of corruption in state-owned enterprises to yet another level. And the only legislation initiative that was needed to be approved by the parliament to pave the way for the large-scale, transparent and professional privatization, this law, when I was still in my position, first reading, it passed only from the 16th attempt. After my resignation, everyone was getting scared for a while, so the second reading went straight through in the first reading. So the country is ready, and the new government has to undertake privatization, and really this is a source of foreign direct investment. This is a source of cheap credit, which is unavailable in Ukraine. This is an opportunity to really modernize some of the companies that we have in Ukraine.
What, in your opinion, are the most important things that need to happen in Ukraine going forward?
Well, the biggest problem of Ukraine is rule of law. So if we have done enormous amount of things on the economic front, debt restructuring, payroll taxes were cut from 41% to 22%. I mean, this is massive tax reduction. Energy sector reform. No gas has been purchased this year from Russia. Everything comes through reverse gas flow through Europe. Tariffs have been raised 450% to deal with corruption, and 13 million people received indiscriminate and very transparent subsidies so that their monthly bill has not increased. So a lot of things have been happening on the economic front by Ministry of Finance, myself, transportation, agriculture. But when it comes to law enforcement, little has been done. So prosecutor's office has not been reformed. Judges are still, unfortunately, corrupt. So unless we really do a major leap in reformatting those institutions, it's going to be hard to have a really big step in the right direction in terms of improving investment climate. So focus has to be really there.
What do you think of the new government under Prime Minister Vladimir Groisman, including your replacement at the Ministry of Economy and Trade, Stepan Kubiv?
When I resigned, I proposed that since this is a crisis of trust, because support rate for Arseniy Yatsenyuk has fallen to very low levels, and in order to get this wave of support from population for reforms, you had to get another person in charge who would be with a spotless reputation, because this is also a crisis of values. Someone who has not been in politics for 10 or 20 years and so on. And Natalie Yaresko fit that type of profile. And we were very, very close to her appointment and the so-called cabinet of ministers of the technocrats. I think this is the only way to really succeed. This is a shortcut to success of Ukraine. So I continuously said that we were 2 steps away from the breakthrough by appointing Natalie Yaresko, 2 steps away from the breakdown if we continue with this political crisis and mess and so on. It seems like Ukraine, as always, has chosen the middle path. So we will continue to muddle through. I guess Groisman, as a former now head of the parliament, speaker, he must have a pretty good cooperation with the parliament. This is what our government partially missed. Only 37% of the laws that came from the cabinet of ministers was approved in the parliament, which is unheard of for any reformist sort of a country like Georgia and Slovakia during the times when they were doing reforms, especially considering that we had both coalition government and coalition in the parliament. So hope he has a better cooperation, and there is going to be a continuity of the things that we have started. And in his inaugural speech today, he mentioned specifically that he will continue with the electronic public procurement implementation across the country. and that he will continue deregulation. So 2 of the 3 most important reforms for me, he immediately mentioned that he will continue with that. So I wish him, the whole cabinet of ministers and the whole of Ukraine luck, and we are, and my team, at their disposal to support in any way we can.
What happens next for yourself now?
Look, the timing is very good for my resignation. It's, end of spring and soon summer starts. So I will definitely take some time off and enjoy the summer, reflect on what has happened, and then make a decision what to do next. But I am sure that I will stay preoccupied with some interesting stuff. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.